Member of Knesset Herzog, good morning.
Good morning to all of you who slept so early in the morning to be with us together.
Thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your memories of your father. No, I'm sure we all agreed that he's one of the most fascinating historic figures, but also one of the inspiring leaders that we had in Israel.
First of all, I'd like to mention that I'm here with my brother, General Mike Herzog. Where are you, Mike? And he's here with his wife, Shireen. And we actually know AIPAC from childhood, and we've respected AIPAC tremendously. I can say that my late father, Chaim Herzog, and my late uncle, Abba Iban, were really at the creation, at the cradle of creation of AIPAC in the 1950s.
Which brings me to my my first question, because you know American historians tend to compare the Herzog family to the Kennedy family without the tragedies, meaning...
Without the sex scandals.
That's yours, it's not
anyway,
mine.
Not yet.
But anyway...
Told you I'll wake you up a bit in the morning.
well, let me say, knowing you, I'm sure that's not going to be the problem. Anyway, what other famous Israeli leaders is your family related to?
Well, we have a long lineage of public activity in our, in our family story. Actually, there are the famous ones: my late grandfather, my late father, my uncle Abba Iban. But there's one great American leader which we are related to, and he was the biggest union leader of the history of the United States. His name is Sidney Hillman. And for all those of you who are social democrats, Sidney Hillman was the closest ally of Franklin Delano Roosevelt. So when you Google Sidney Hillman, you say that everything in the New Deal was carried out at the approval of Hillman. And he would say, "Clear it with Sid." And that helped us a lot. During the war, my grandfather, Rabbi Herzog, came to the White House begging Roosevelt to bomb the railroads in Europe, and warning about, telling him about the Holocaust. Roosevelt was then inundated with the situation in Europe all over. The mission didn't succeed enough, but my family's relationship with US presidents goes back to 13 presidents already.
So you are here in history. Well, the video that we just saw, the marvelous video, took a close look at the role your father played as Israel's ambassador to the UN, but he has been in many crossroads in Israel's history. Iconic moments, I think one of them is, of course, his role in the Six-Day War. How old were you, and what did it look from your eyes as a son of Herzog?
Look, my father's generation were the officers of the War of Independence. And he got back from battle in Europe, in the worst of battles, as was mentioned, and fought in '48, and was the first commander of the intelligence to form the Israeli military intelligence thereafter under the instructions of Ben-Gurion. So we all grew up in this neighborhood called Sahala, in the name of IDF. It was like a little kibbutz. And in the Six-Day War, there was a period preceding the war where the Israeli public was totally uninformed and was in huge fear. And just about a week or so before the war, my father got a phone call whether he would agree to speak on the radio and commentate on the situation, and he agreed. He had 99% rating. He hit the jackpot that day, and from then on, our life changed dramatically. Not only did he appear constantly, he became a very famous media person.
What was it for you growing? How old were you then?
I was
it's okay
6.
to ask.
We were in a trench. We dug a trench. A few days before the war, my dad and us, Mike, we dug a trench. We were in the trench. We were bombarded from Qalqilia.
You literally dug a trench?
Yeah, there were no shelters then. At the time, there was no instruction of home front command or nothing. We just each we dug a trench, we kind of put all sorts of papers on our doors and windows so that there would be no light, so that the Arab planes would not find us and whatever. But the Jordanians, knowing that a lot of the Israeli generals lived in this neighborhood, bombarded Tzala, and houses were demolished in the region. And we saw, I mean, there was a lot of bombarding for the first 2 days, then it disappeared forever. But clearly it was a big event, and the generals of that war, of 67, were living in our neighborhood. What happened later on was, and it's a lesson for history, is that a lot of those generals who later became very important people, they missed the opportunity between 67 and 73. And in 73, our neighborhood lost 11 sons overnight, just like Makat Bechorot, unfortunately. And I always tell myself, didn't they see that they could have perhaps prevented that war in 73? Big question. Anyway, at that time, my father was already out of the military and out of politics at the time before he went to politics again.
In the video we watched, it ended with a sentence I think I will take personally from this morning, and he says, one can, should, and must dream. So what does that sentence mean to you? What dreams you have for
my
Israel?
father's history was such that he saw the Jewish people in their darkest moment, in the abyss. He walked into Bergen-Belsen. Until today, I meet survivors. He saw them as skeletons. He told them in Yiddish, I am an officer from the Eretz Israel. And they thought he is a disguised Nazi. They started running away. They were like in the mud, and they were in manure, there was terrible smell. He depicts the story of going into Bergen-Belsen. And so he saw the darkest moments. And imagine a few years later, he's at the cradle of the creation of a new state, of the Jewish state. And he's fighting. So for him, always, my father not only didn't take Israel for granted, he knew that there are certain elements that have to be a must in whichever thing we do. One is Israel's security as the utmost important element in the preservation of the Jewish state. Number two, it has to be Israel's just cause, a vibrant, democratic, socially oriented in its compassion to its poor people, as well as presenting its case amongst the nations. And finally, by the way, something which is really, really important, its unique relationship with the Jewish diaspora wherever it may be. If you mentioned already Kennedy's, may I just say on the quote of Kennedy, we should not always ask, what does the Jewish community do for Israel? We should also ask, what does Israel do for the Jewish community wherever they are? And not only that, we should always, always, always make sure that we have a unity of the Jewish people wherever they are, not divisiveness, and make sure that Jews with all beliefs and all denominations and all streams are working together as we see in this wonderful hall.
I will applaud to that. We started on a personal note, and I do want to end on a personal note. I know that your grandfather was a bit discouraged with the fact that your father didn't follow his footsteps and become a rabbi. So I was wondering, A, was it a must for you to go into public service? And B, do you want to close the circle and one day also find yourself following your footsteps of your father and becoming the president of Israel?
So first of all, we are a serving family. It's in our genes. I left private practice in a very successful law firm to serve the people of Israel. I believe in serving in all forms. I'm very active in politics. As you know, I founded the Zionist Union with my friend Tzipi Livni. I'm here with my friend Avi Gabay, who I hope will one day lead the country. We're doing our best, really, doing our best to change the situation in Israel, helping the people and making change. So wherever I can make change for the well-being of the people of Israel, I'll do that. And this, I think, is my raison d'etre, or my innermost being. But may I say, you know, my grandfather said to my father, when my father told him, look, Dad, I'm not going to be a rabbi, but I want to be an officer and a commander in the Israeli army, he said to him, if there's nothing more important than, if you're not a rabbi, then the second most important thing in life, go and be an officer in the Israeli army. So I think it's a combination. As you can see, we take upon ourselves each generation, bechol dor vador. We take the challenges of the nations on us, and I hope to be able to serve my people many years in whichever form or manner, Israel and the Jewish people.
Member of Knesset Herzog, thank you so much for sharing with us your personal stories and your leadership.
May I just conclude by saying, look, my father's last appearance was at AIPAC, at the conference here 21 years ago. I think it's an incredible organization. I think what AIPAC does is a huge element in fostering Israel's security and well-being. I want to commend you and thank you, and may we go together from strength to strength, and may Israel serve as a beacon of great values to all of you. Thank you very much.
Let's all say amen to that. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Bye-bye.